The Citizen Mike Show. News. Commentary. Interviews. Citizen Mike Show starts now.
Welcome to the Citizen Mike Show. Thanks for tuning in. We do appreciate it. My name is Mike Brodinski. On my right, Republican Town Councilor Christopher K. Shortell, and our special guest in the studio, he is Wallingford's Economic Development Specialist, Tim Ryan. Tim, thanks for coming back on the show.
It is my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you. And we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Let's give credit first to the photographer who took the eagle.
Okay.
Jeff Cohan. So we're going to try something new in the next few shows. That's, it's like he's breathing down your neck. That's why we're going to have a couple wildlife photos there as background. We'll see how they work. Give us your comments or thoughts or whatever if you get the opportunity as to what you think. Tim, let's get back to economic development and what you're involved in. And I pulled a staff report from it's fairly recent, and the staff report is a lot of things you're working on, a lot of things you're doing, a lot of things the Economic Development Commission is involved in, and a couple of lines caught my eye. One, it says that you and the Wallingford Center Inc. Met with representatives from an organization called Connecticut Main Street. You had some discussion and to begin a process of determining the profile of businesses that thrive in New England town centers. And another line, I think it refers to the same process. You're talking about, again, determining what types of business are thriving and leasing challenges. Put some flesh on those bones. What was the discussion, and why did you have it?
Sure. So Wallingford has what I refer to as a unique and sustainable competitive advantage in that we have a town center. And those of us that have lived here our entire life kind of take that for granted. But there are other communities around us that wish they'd have a town center. So we have the asset that we refer to as a town center, and we want to make sure that it's vibrant. And we all recognize the fact that Uptown is a pretty vibrant space. It's a destination for dining now, with the new brew pub, Center Street Brewing Company, the restaurants. I mean, people gather in Uptown. We also recognize that the lower part of the hill, from the middle to the lower part of the hill, is kind of tired, and we'd like to do something with that. So, and I say we, I mean Planning and Zoning Commission, the mayor. I mean, we're all, those of us who love Wallingford and love the fact that we have a town center, want to see it thrive. So what's happened in recent years, for a variety of reasons, there's been new zoning regulations for the town center to try to encourage mixed-use development. It's a little bit of a different conversation, but what you're referring to in the minutes from our last EDC meeting is that we have been approached, and I say we again, it's the town planner, it's economic development, we've been approached by a couple of the local landlords that have got prospective tenants for some of their vacancies, but for the most part, they're office users. And it is the collective, wisdom of again, town planner, economic development that says you need a good mix of retail in a town center. Otherwise, it's not really by definition a town center. If we have too much office space, it becomes it's a linear office park, and it doesn't become that vibrant town center that we think it can be. At the same time, we take into consideration that the market, which is the strongest power of all, the market is pretty much saying to the world, not a lot of opportunities for traditional retail in town center. So we want to be fair to the landlords, the property owners, and I've met with Casey Hand, our town planner, several times on the subject. We then went to the mayor and said, and with WCI, Liz Landau, the executive director of WCI.
Wallingford Center Inc., WCI.
Wallingford Center Inc. And said, in fairness to everybody, in order for the town to get what we envision and to be fair to the landlords so that they can generate tenants for their properties, we really need to come up with some sort of a profile as to what what works in town centers. There are retail components. You know, Liz and I have visited, along with Casey, have visited several town centers throughout Connecticut. I'm not going to say any of them are thriving, but there are pieces that are alive. So our vision is, and the mayor has asked economic development to work with WCI to come up with a profile. So our job is to then take and go through town centers in the state of Connecticut especially and find out what types of businesses work. I mean, is it a button shop? Is it a specialty shop? What percentage of that business is walk-in versus online? What are they paying per square foot? I mean, in all fairness, we have to make a determination as to whether our landlords are being reasonable with their rent rates. Okay. So, and are they not attracting the right people because their rents are too high? So those are conclusions that none of us have made at this point. It's just something that was determined, within the last month. And Liz Landau and I have taken the first step and went up and did meet with Connecticut Main Street Center, which is a nonprofit up in Hartford, and their focus in the state of Connecticut is vibrancy in town centers. So we will start to, tap that resource.
Let's go around the table. You're next. Chris.
Here we go.
Yeah, here we go. You heard the overview. Mm-hmm. Your reaction?
I love having Tim on the case. I think going to a place that would have best practices, basically, and what other towns are doing is good. I think it's an uphill challenge, though. I think back to when I was a kid, you had Bolio's, you had the hardware store, it was a bookstore, I think, at one point somewhere on Center Street. And I think, like you said, those days are kind of over. A lot of that is all online now. So you can get, there is a T-shirt place that sells high school stuff, logos, but like Bolio was a sporting, full service sporting goods store. Now you can get that stuff online or go to, somewhere else. So I think it's tough to try to to get retail back, and I don't have any answers. I mean, I think you're on the right track, trying to look at what you're looking at. But what do you think?
Well, funny you should ask.
You're going to tell us.
Funny you should ask. Well, I always do. It's an opinion show. We all got to have an opinion, or else what's the point? My question is, how would this information inform decisions of government officials? What difference does it make?
Oh, I think it makes a big difference.
Yeah,
so
explain.
It's part of the process I've explained thus far, but
Yeah.
certainly early in the process. And again, I want to stress we are very early in this process. So, and we want to have something concluded before the end of the spring. So this is like, we're not going to drag this thing out. We're going to do this and get it done. But we want to have a public meeting with the people from downtown. Let's get the merchants in the room and say, folks, this is what we're thinking about. This is what we're working on. What is it we
Let
can
me
do?
stop you there. This is what we're thinking about. But again, you can't decree who they lease to. You can prohibit certain uses in your zoning regulations, which is probably exactly the wrong thing to do. You probably should make it more inclusive, but that's you'll tell me about that in a second, I'm sure. What you determine doesn't impact the market. So I'm still not sure what practical application this has. I mean, I can see that Connecticut Main Street would say, well, pharmacies do very well. Well, so what? I mean, get a pharmacy. Go out and get a pharmacy,
Right.
They may say Ace hardware stores do very well. Go out and get a hardware store. I've joked on this show, when Ralph was here, I'm not sure with you, I know what I want. I mean, I want a full service, fully stocked Eastern Mountain Sports, and my wife wants a Talbot's. So what? I mean, go out and get them. So that's what I'm getting at. So you have
Right.
this, this ring of landlords around you, and they say, we've determined that these uses do well. So what are they supposed to do with that? Turn away somebody hoping that someone who meets the profile comes and...
Well, I think you have to go out and hunt down those profiles. So,
Yeah.
through zoning regulations, the bottom line is, there is local control as to what can and cannot be in the town center. Not only right now are they prohibiting office on the first floor unless it's grandfathered from a previous user, but there are other uses that are prohibited. I think there's been a restriction, and I'm not the planning and zoning person, so
Yeah.
I don't know all the details. I would defer to Casey, but I think there are some other uses that we would consider, not downtown friendly, that have already been eliminated in the downtown zoning regulations. So
You mean bringing them back in to make them permitted uses? Is that what you meant by that?
No,
Oh.
I'm trying to respond to your point of saying, how do we control what goes into downtown? And you control it through zoning regulations, of course. But we want to be user-friendly to the landlords. We're trying to be respectful of the fact that they own property and they're trying to lease the property. We want to see full properties. We don't want to see vacancies. But if you have all offices, again, you have a linear office park. So what is the right mix? And we're hoping that we can try to figure that out and do that by engaging, the local landlords. I mean, there's no sense in working outside of them, so let's work with them. But we'll bring in, again, Connecticut Main Street Center, and then some of it's going to be shoe leather. It's going to be getting in the car, going to local communities. It's going to be me working with other economic development directors. In Naugatuck, for example, Casey and I went out to Naugatuck, and we walked the town center along with Liz Landau. And we see merchants that are doing well in downtown Naugatuck. What we haven't done at this point is gone in and said to the merchants, introduced ourselves and said, what makes this work for you? But
Customers.
understood, but there's some sort of a business model that works. And if we were to come back to some of the downtown, merchants, property owners, and say, this is what we found works in other communities, you may want to give it a shot. How can we help you find them? We're just trying to be, neighborly and not dictatorial. It's one thing to say we don't want all office, and you do that with a regulation, and you keep denying people the ability to release their space. It just doesn't seem, friendly.
Yeah.
It's not Wallingford.
So I'm going to give you a view of a comment I've heard over the years that don't make any sense to me, and then I want Chris to weigh in, and then you'll have the final word on it. We'll move to another topic. But I've heard residents, voters say, well, first we have to find out what we want. That's the first step.
Mm-hmm.
And my palm print is still embedded in my forehead when I hear that. Because how relevant is that? There's a prospective tenant who wants to lease from a landlord. The market controls it. Those two know what they want. The town shouldn't be getting in the way and separating the two parties. No. It's not what we, the town, wanted. And so, and we can we can wish for anything we want to wish for. We wish we had a drugstore. We really want a drugstore. Well, good luck with that. Meanwhile, there's a landlord with an open storefront, and we're holding it up, because it's not a drugstore. Go to Chris, and then you got the final word, and we'll move on. Yeah.
Someone replaced you with a libertarian. What happened to the Mike Brudzinski I know?
He's always been around. You just haven't been listening. You just haven't been listening.
Wow.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I hope Craig's watching. Well, I get it. I'm in the middle, literally here, but I get what you're saying. But I guess let me just react by saying I've only been on the council for 4 years, 1 month, 2 weeks. But I will never, to have a department or a branch of the executive branch of the Wallingford government be going out to other towns to see what's going on in other communities as part of their process. I will never, ever question that, because I'm always, and I'm not the only one, we're always bringing up, I'm not with all sorts of department heads, what do other towns do? And that argument isn't always well received. So I love that they're doing that. So that's my comment. I think it's great. Now, does that mean that because Tim and they go to Naugatuck, can they wave a magic wand and get a pharmacy or a hardware store or, another thing?
Talbot's or Eastern Mountain
or
stores.
I want a 2-floor Barnes & Noble, by the way. I want with a video section. I want the video section. I know it's all streaming, but I want to bring back the DVDs. But I still think you have to ask those questions to get there. And I'm not going to fault anybody on the town side for at least looking around the state and seeing what's going on in other communities. So I think that's the starting point, and then we'll see what happens.
No one's faulting them. The question I'm asking is to what impact? But, Tim.
I guess my response would be that
Yeah.
not everybody knows where Wallingford is. And I'm saying that from a merchant standpoint that exists and operate in downtowns throughout Connecticut. They don't all know where Wallingford is. So we could come across something that, and someone says, geez, maybe I'll have an annex, or I'd love to put a store in Wallingford. Who knows? I mean, Eastern Mountain Sports, drugstores, let's face it, we know those things aren't going to happen. But town centers, can be populated, and we want to work with people as opposed to, we don't want to sit right now. Where we are right now is that we have a regulation that says you either can or you can't. And that's where it stops. And we're saying, well, it really shouldn't stop there because we need to be more user-friendly and trying to take and strengthen what we have identified as a strong community asset.
So let's move on to something else. But this also comes from your staff report, and it's a reference to discussions being underway to change the look of Wallingford's billboards that they have on Route 91 and maybe other places too.
Mm-hmm.
Just give us a little background as to what's wrong with the billboards we have, what stimulated this conversation, where did, fill us in.
Sure. So the EDC has a marketing committee, a subcommittee, which is chaired by Mark Gingras, who's the vice chair of the EDC. Patricia Cimbola is on the committee as well, along with Rob Fritz. So that marketing committee, amongst many other things, but we have 5 billboards. And those boards, now we call them billboards. We have one legitimate full-size billboard, and it happens to be on Route 15, and it's right behind BJ's. So you can see it if you're going north on 15.
What's it say?
That one says Wallingford works for you.
Okay.
All right. So the others are really they're signs. All right. We call them billboards, but they're signs. They're phone poles in the ground with big pieces of plywood on them, and we've had signs imprinted over the top.
But you're unhappy with what they say now, apparently.
No.
Okay.
We change the message up from time to time. So we promote the low cost of our power.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we try to stay in sync with what the needs are in the marketplace. And right now, a huge need, given our strong manufacturing base, which is again a very strong asset that we have, is workforce. There's not a manufacturer in this town that I know of that's working at full staff. They're all looking for people. So we are trying to sell our central location. We're trying to sell accessibility. Not to get off subject, and I'll get back to the billboards in a second, but we had asked the Connecticut Economic Resource Center several years ago to do some research for us because people up and down the 91 corridor all say, we're centrally located. And we said, well, everybody's saying we're centrally located, so how do we differentiate ourselves? So we said, put a pin in Wallingford. The average commute in Connecticut is 20 minutes, 20 to 25 minutes. What percentage of the workforce in the state of Connecticut can get to Wallingford within a 20-minute commute? The answer, given their survey and their study, is 52%. So that's significant. That makes us stand out. So several of our boards, we're going to be looking at changing the messages from power, and now power is still a great message. So we're not
From the low cost of electricity.
from the low cost
Yeah,
electricity,
okay.
right, to we're more accessible, workforce accessibility. So
And meaning you can get to your job?
you can get here.
That's what you mean by that?
Right. You can't say this on a billboard, but behind that whole message is that 52% of the entire workforce in the state of Connecticut can get to Wallingford within a 20-minute commute.
All right, well,
You can get here without going through the jam-ups in Hartford, and more often in New Haven, in Waterbury, if you think of proximity. That's something that we sell on a regular basis verbally. We're looking to do boards that do that. And just another point of clarity, Mike, is that
Yeah.
we have been, I think, we've been criticized for, why are we spending money on billboards? We don't pay for a single one of those billboards. Every single one of those billboards, the space that they sit on is donated. What we do pay for is the sign that we plop over the top. So if we go out there and say, okay, we want to change the sign from low cost of power to workforce accessibility, then we pay to have them redone. But there is no monthly stipend or monthly fee that we pay for
Okay.
any of those boards.
well, the Citizen Mike Show has been leaked some prospective billboards that the Economic Development Commission has been considering. It's tightly under wraps, but we were given secret access to these billboards because, and you guys must discuss this behind closed doors, I'm not really sure. But we got these, and we're going to put them up on the screen to see what we think works, and maybe our viewers will weigh in. And remember, this is the Economic Development Commission that has, come up with these ideas for billboards. Time for a change, kind of a thing. Bruce, have you got your finger on that first one? So this is the first one that the Economic Development Commission of the town is considering for a new billboard.
Okay.
All right, the eagle just flapped his wings. Chris, you like it? All right, number 2. What
out of
else
10.
is the EDC can? Move to Wallingford, at least we're not Meriden. All right. I like that one. Where would that go? Route 91? Perfect spot.
I'm gonna defer any comment on that one, Mike. Thank you.
You're not in the spirit of this, I don't think.
Right on the line.
Oh, I'm in the
91.
spirit of it, but not that-
Economic
never-
Development Commission came up with a third one. Let's see if we like that. Drive America's most beautiful highway, see scenic Route 5 in Wallingford. We could put that one on Route 5 or something, right? That would attract a lot of business. All right. I don't get any laughs from you
That's
guys.
apparently your opinion, but I'll go with that.
All right. What's the next one? The EDC. Swim the mighty Quinnipiac River. Take your vacation in 06492. Well, we got to promote tourism, and, you know, this is one way of doing it. Chris, yeah?
Sure.
You-
By we, this is you. I just think we need to clarify that for the viewers. The
I was
we-
waiting for you to clarify
These
that.
are all
for-
Mike's
Let's
jokes.
move on to
My
the
jokes got
next,
vetoed.
the next billboard
you
at
also
the
just took me
Economic
off the list.
Development
You're taking
Commission.
him off the list. Right.
What's the next one? Don't get to work too early. Take the train from Wallingford. That's
like
what
that. I like that one.
You like that? That's
Yeah,
what
that's
the
cute.
EDC thought would work, allegedly. Anyway, they thought it would work. Okay, what's next, Bruce? Visit Wallingford. It's on the Connecticut's Wine Trail. I like that
I
one.
like one.
Maybe
That's a
the-
good one.
That's
You
a
know
good
what?
one.
That's a good
yeah,
one.
okay.
That's a winner.
And remember, folks, take notes and make sure you contact the Economic Development Commission or Tim Ryan with your favorite, and so they can. Okay, what's next?
Oh,
Begging, begging. Come to Wallingford, please. Bristol Myers Squibb left us.
Boy, he knows how to turn the knife.
Yeah, he
doesn't
really
Chris?
does.
That
Yes,
should
yes.
work. I think that should work.
Yeah,
I think that
Chris
should.
knife there.
Are we all done? We got one more. We got
Please
one
be
more.
done.
Let's see the
Oh, we
last.
got one more.
The last is.
oh, here it is. Yeah,
Uh,
there it is.
All right, let's take that down. No, Chris and Tim are just not in the spirit of this. So, okay, let's change the
close to
subject.
having some fun with that, but
Nah, those are hysterical. I'm sorry. People probably ask you, Tim, wherever you go, like, what's new in Wallingford? You know, what's coming up? What big deals? And so we wanted to ask you about that. We know that this proton therapy facility, and we're going to get to you for the background, hit the news. I think it was last fall, and there's a big headline: Connecticut's two leading health systems partner to bring new cancer treatment to the state. That's October 2019. Just a couple of lines, Tim, before I go to you. Hartford Healthcare and Yale New Haven Hospital will seek approval from the State Office of Health Strategy to move forward with a project which would include construction of a 25,000 square foot proton therapy center at 932 Northrop Road in Wallingford. The highly targeted radiological treatment uses protons rather than X-rays to treat cancer and is only available at a handful of locations in the Northeast, none of them in Connecticut until now. They were looking for some approval or something back in October. Would you just bring us up to date as to what's gone on recently in the last few months and fill in a little of the details that I missed?
absolutely. So
Yeah.
first off, this is great news for Wallingford. This is a $72 million project. And $72 million and 25,000 square feet typically don't line up, but it talks to the technology, or speaks to the technology that will be in that facility. It is fully taxable. So I've seen and heard people saying, well, it's a medical facility, there's no tax being collected. Why are we it is fully taxable. And we in doing our homework, and if I may just digress and say, there's a process. The way these things work, and it's very typical of a lot of projects, is I will get contacted by brokers, or what they're referred to as site selectors. So the two, Yale and Hartford, and the developer on this is a company called Proton Beam International. So Proton Beam International is bringing Yale and Hartford together, in conversations to do this project. When I'm contacted, it's from a commercial brokerage firm, and which is very common. I have no idea who the client is. I don't know it's Proton Beam International. I don't know. They're simply saying we have an office user that's looking for X number of acres. It's going to be a facility of 25,000 square feet. They talk about proximity to highway. They talk about other criteria. Needs to be flat. Needs to be, no environmental, et cetera. So they go through a criteria. And they're saying this to me, they're saying this up and down. They wanted to be in the 91 corridor, so I know they're talking to Middletown, they're talking to Rocky Hill, they're talking to Meriden, they're up and down, they're talking to North Haven. So we all have the opportunity to do our due diligence on what sites we feel meet the criteria, and then we submit them as potential locations
To the broker.
to the broker.
Yeah.
All right. Still, at this point, all we know it's an office user. So you've got to, and this is just under 18 months from the time the broker first called me until the time we were introduced to the client. So as the process starts to progress, sites start to fall off the list, and we stay in touch with the broker, and the broker says, okay, you're still on, you're still in the game, or you're not, and this is why. And that's just the way the economic development space works. That's the way the game is played. So as the list started getting refined, we know that we were still on it. We got to the point we were down to one of the last 3 sites. And at that point, we interjected that we would be much more favorable if we have a taxable user. And I need some assurance before we're going to go any further, in fairness to them and in fairness to us, that we want a taxable user in the sites that we had proposed. And within the 3 sites that I had proposed, 2 of them had already fallen off the list, so we were down to 1 site. We're saying we know what zone it's in an industrial development zone. We want a taxable user. At that point, they assured me that they are a taxable user. Still, me not knowing who the client is, knowing nothing about Proton being international, Yale, Hartford, nothing. It finally got to the point where they said we're one of the 2 finalists, and I out of respect for them, I said, you should disclose who this is, because we really need to make sure that the town is welcoming. I don't want you to disqualify somebody else and find out that we're not going to welcome the project. So we did. We set up a meeting. We had brought the mayor into confidence, obviously, and through this process, people would find this probably a little bit surprising, but throughout this process, when economic developers like myself work in confidentiality, I speak to nobody. The mayor doesn't know. All right, so I speak to nobody because there's no room for an economic developer who can't keep a secret, because you lose projects going forward. And the site selector universe does not trust that you'll keep a confidence. So in this particular case, it's a new development, but if it's a company that's relocating from someplace else, there's a lot of considerations like employee reaction if they're going to be moving. Radial was a good example of that when they moved up to Northrop Road from New Haven. They couldn't have that word get out ahead of time because they've got 85 employees that are going to be sitting there wondering what's happening, right? So anyway, that's part of the process. So we got to the point where we had, given the nature of what this is, the principals from Pro Temp Beam International took me into their confidence singularly. I then spoke to our town planner. I spoke to the mayor. I said we need to get a meeting together. So mayor, town planner, public health was there, wetlands was there. Let's see, legal was there, given the nature of what it is. Legal was there. We all met. Pro Temp Beam International did a presentation. They did a presentation under the condition that we would continue to respect their confidentiality.
What date are we at now?
We're back in the fall.
Of 2019?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Before that announcement, a month or so before it was publicly announced.
Okay. All right.
So
And so then they made the decision to go to pick Wallingford. Was there a back of the envelope estimate of the amount of taxes they might pay?
there was a point where I brought Shelby Jackson into the confidence and said, frankly, we wanted to confirm.
Yeah.
They're saying that they're going to pay taxes.
Right.
And I'm saying, okay, I'd like for Shelby to confirm that they are paying taxes in other entities that they run around the country. What makes this a taxable opportunity or a taxable event is that it's a medical use, but it's not part of a campus operation. So if this was performed on a medical campus, Connecticut state tax law says you cannot tax it. It's tax exempt. It's a standalone facility, so it's taxable. They do have several.
But how much?
Oh, it's fully taxable.
No, but do we have a dollar amount?
Well, we would do the math on $72 million. That's
Okay.
the project cost.
All right.
Yep. So they would be paying real estate tax on the property, and they would be paying personal property tax on all of the technology. So it is a $72 million taxable opportunity. So I would say, using a baseball analogy, Bristol Myers being the grand slam, this is definitely a home run for this town.
So I want to change focus, another part of town. But before we get to that Amazon facility, Chris, your thoughts, your reflections on what Tim had just gone through.
It's fascinating to hear about the process. Number one, because it just is. But number two, that story broke, I want to say, the week of the candidate forum.
Yeah, October.
Which is my favorite. If you watch
October
Citizen
19.
Mike Show, I'm obsessed with the candidate forum.
Yeah.
And I think in one of my answers, I referenced that this facility was coming and that therapy is groundbreaking. I mean, the therapy used to be, I mean, I had a relative who had to go to California in 2011 to get that therapy. So it's an amazing therapy. But in another question, Luther Turmel of the New Haven Register basically challenged me and said, you brought up that proton therapy. Well, how much did Wallingford really have to do with getting that there? So I think that in Luther's eyes, the process is simply that you are sitting in town hall with the mayor, you're sipping drinks, you're hanging out, and you're looking at the mill rate, and then the phone rings. And it's proton therapy. We want to come to Wallingford.
Yeah.
Sure.
So if Luther Turmel was sitting at this table, would he agree that's what his
You know
process
what?
is?
I don't know. I like
he
Luther.
watches the show, so
He does watch the show.
You betcha.
Luther, it's okay. You're a good guy. But anyway, I'm glad to hear about the 18-month process and that all the work that goes into it. And the confidentiality part was something I did not. I mean, I knew that you're not going around talking about it, but the fact that the mayor, even the mayor, the chief executive of the town, would not be brought in until he needs to know, is fascinating.
So changing focus, there was an innocuous little piece in the Record Journal. I think it was December 5, 2019, and the headline was "A warehouse renovation plan in Wallingford leads to dispute over drainage, soil quality," and this was a story about something that happened, I think, in front of the Inland Wetlands Commission. And it all went off on drainage and soil and compacted soil and all that kind of stuff. But not included was a rumor that, I'm not going to say it's a rumor, it's true. This is an Amazon facility, Tim. I don't know if you can confirm that or not, but we have sources too, right? I mean, it's Amazon, yeah? What can you say about that?
I cannot confirm nor deny.
Okay, so I'm just going to go with it's an Amazon is coming in with another distribution center at 425 South Cherry Street. Now, this location is on the way to the town dump, almost across the street from the dog pound.
Yeah.
And across the street from the town dump. It's in that
Right there.
section of South Cherry. I appreciate you don't want to confirm or deny Amazon, although, yeah. What can you tell us about the future of that parcel, the timing? What can you add to?
It will be on the planning and zoning agenda for March
For what sort of an issue?
to get permission
For March.
for March. Yep.
And will the name of the occupant still be officially hidden from view? Or
I suspect it may be announced at that particular point in time.
it will
Yeah.
be announced at that particular
I
point?
suspect.
Yeah, okay. I mean,
I understand that the word is leaked out, but I think it's
Well,
important.
we got it, yeah.
It's important for everybody to understand it didn't come from me.
got it.
Because
Yeah.
the space I live in, confidentiality is king.
Yeah, no,
All right. So, but just a comment or two about what that will do or what that
Yeah.
is. So, that's a 85,000 square foot warehouse right now. A little tired looking from the outside.
Yeah.
It was a white goods warehouse before, so when you bought refrigerators, stoves, et cetera, from Home Depot, when people don't, where do they go? Where do they come from when they show up at your door? Well, they were coming out of that facility. And that's been vacant for a little while. Right across the street from there, we have BYK
Yeah.
or BIC, right? So that is the North American headquarters for BIC. That's huge. They're
It
one
is.
of our biggest, most successful businesses.
Very prestigious.
Yes.
Yeah.
And their campus is gorgeous. Green lawns, nicely landscaped. So I look at this, and I've had conversations with the town planner, and she's totally in sync, that this is an opportunity, even though on the west side of this warehouse is what we used to be called the dump. It is now a mountainous, but it's where we're doing trash and recycling and things of that nature. So I'm not so concerned about what the west side looks like, but the east side facing South Cherry Street, dress it up a little bit. So when BIC has people coming, they're an international business, German-owned business.
We can impress them.
Well, and when they
with
look out
how
their
good
window,
that
they
area
can at least
looks.
look at something decent. They're
Yeah.
not looking at something that, and I don't mean to insult the landlord. It was what it needed to be before.
Sure.
But this is a great opportunity to take and spiff it up and spruce it up and polish that apple a little bit.
And I think a solar array is going in,
solar array is going
in
on
that
that
area too.
landfill.
It's going to
Right.
have a whole
It's going to be
new,
like Futureland in Disney World or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Or
But you know,
Tomorrowland.
if I may interject, so the solar array brings up another, thing that we work on all the time, and that's highest and best use of a site. So you take a look at the old landfill, the old dump, and you say, putting a solar array, I mean, that's a home run. That's the highest and best use of that site. It could never be used for anything else. Now, that same company has asked about other spaces in town. And when they, up in Barnes Park, and there's been a couple of others they've inquired about, and I've discouraged them, saying, I would not consider putting a solar array on a 3-acre parcel on Research Parkway, the highest and best use of that site, in the best interest of the people of the town of Wallingford.
Let's run
So-
the numbers first
Yeah.
before we exclude them. Let me change the subject because I'm going to have to start triaging time a little bit. I want to talk about the future of the Brothers parking lot,
Okay.
according to Tim Ryan. And we talked about that a lot on the show. We've had counselors in, we've asked their opinion, and everyone's got an opinion on it. And there are three main thoughts, I think, for the future of the Brothers parking lot. One, make it a parking lot, and that is a track it's on now, and I think inevitably it will be a parking lot. The money's in place, and I think Rob Baltramitis is just ready to pull the trigger, and poof, it's a parking lot. But others have said we should try to market that property to a developer and try to monetize it by having someone build on it, and then we tax it, and that would add possibly vitality to the downtown. And then out of left field, this is this weird idea that
This is
someone came up
Is the
with,
splash park again coming?
is to have a very high-end park, with lots of flowers and a splash pad and maybe a fountain. And the idea would be it would be a place people would want to walk to. It would gentrify the neighborhood, and it would be something that would be nice to look at right from the get-go. Aesthetics has value. That is the minority view. But if you do your reading, parks gentrify areas. If you put in a nice-looking park, the properties around the park can increase in value for many, many reasons. All parks don't do that. All locations don't do that. I mean, it's not an automatic, and I'm not sure that a park in the Brothers parking lot area would work. I'm not sure that the property is big enough. All those are unknowns. But you're a parking advocate for that. Tell me why.
Okay. So it's a matter of looking at somewhat of a grand plan for the lower part of the hill. And for the lower part of the hill, for the sake of this argument, let's talk about Route 5 to South Cherry Street, and then Quinnipiac and Hall Avenue. So we're talking about a relatively small swath. And let's just take, the town did engage the Connecticut DOT. Actually, DOT came to us shortly after the train station, or probably right before the train station, the new train platform was completed, and said that they are going to embark on a transit-oriented development research piece up and down the train line, and with all the communities up and down that train line, to determine what development opportunities may or may not exist. Would we like to participate? And we said we'd like to participate, so we did. Their dime didn't cost us a dime other than our labor and interest. So now, so what's come of that, and there was step by step. So we take a look at a parcel. Probably the easiest way to do this is take a particular parcel and put it in your mind. So let's say the corner of Route 5, Hall Avenue, the tracks, and Holy Trinity. All right, that everybody know what parcel I'm referring to. So let's say that parcel was to be redeveloped. What we really like to see, and some of the research that we've done, and I say we, I mean, again, the town planner, I work very, very closely with Casey Hand. The town planner and the Planning and Zoning Commission are saying that, mixed-use development in a town center would helps the vibrancy. And what helps vibrancy is people. We need more people, which means we need more housing stock. So on that swath that I just described, we said, let's play situation. All right? What could we build there? And we sat down and went through the exercise with Casey. She went through the town regulations. This is what is allowed to be built there. We did everything as if we were the developer. This is how many units could fit there based on town zoning regulations. This is how many parking spaces you need to have. As a result, this is the rent roll that would be generated. this is what it would cost to build that particular facility. We did the cost of long money. We did capital expectation rates as if we were developers. We played the entire scenario out.
And that led you to,
It's not going to work.
because you're not enough
Because-
parking.
No, because there's not enough revenue generation on that square footage.
Okay.
So you need more revenue. So how do you get more revenue? So Casey then turned around and went back and said to her commission and said, let's redo the town zoning regulations. So they reduced the parking requirement from 1.5 spaces per residential unit to 1. All right, less parking is an expense, not a revenue generator, but by having less parking, we can add more revenue generating units.
So I'm just trying to get to the bottom line here. So the Brothers parking lot is to support the private enterprise that would make money
Potentially,
by having not enough parking spaces.
potentially.
And we would have to subsidize their development by providing the parking
Well,
they don't want to pay for.
Yeah, I don't like the way it sounds when you
I
say it.
know that,
but-
and that's
but-
what I'm trying to
but
draw it
Welcome to
out.
my world. Welcome to my world.
But I think, what I've said so many times to so many people is, we have a town center, and we have a vision for what we'd like. And in real life, when you have a vision for something you'd like, you have to have some skin in it. You have to participate somehow. So EDC and the council approved, and we thank you for that. It was a 5-year tax abatement that we approved for development in the incentive housing zone down in this area, the area that we're talking about. But what we're saying is, in order for something to happen there, having done all of the research and homework that we've done, and this is, again, I credit the Connecticut DOT, they had the experts, the subject matter experts that were at the table repeatedly. We need more units. Well, more units means less parking. Less parking means, well, we can put more parking right across the street.
I get it. I think I get it. It will happen if only we make that a parking lot.
Well, no, but you've got to.
I know, because I've been following this for like 20 years, and nothing has changed. And nothing has changed.
Yep.
And so, I mean, your plan is really nice. I mean, the vision, vision is really nice. But once in a while, a vision kind of goes off the reservation and becomes a dream.
Sure.
Well,
And
you got to have dreams.
it may
You'll
never
get your
happen.
shot in, Chris.
Yeah, it
You'll
may
get
never
your shot
happen.
in.
But
I mean, that's really great. And you have experts, and that kind of closes the conversation. Well, we have experts. Make it a parking lot, and in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, this will be a vibrant town center, right? I mean, isn't that where we're... Again,
it
where
all
we're-
starts with vision, and all starts with
Yeah.
having the energy to do something about it, as opposed to sit back and do nothing.
Right.
So,
well, no, there are alternatives.
Yeah.
People want to market that and do it now. Someone will buy it.
I would submit that the
Yeah.
tax revenue that was generated on that site before is so small compared to what it could be if it was a participant piece in a bigger, larger development project. So
Shortell's chomping at the bit. So we got to get him involved.
Okay, well, I know I have two thoughts on this.
Yeah.
This having you on the show. I just gotten over the election, and now I'm having flashbacks back to coming off an election, where everything you're describing, that doesn't happen. Don't you understand? Wallingford doesn't have a vision. Wallingford doesn't. All the things you're describing, I had to hear about, not from you, but I had to hear about, during the fall. The fact that you would look at a parcel and have a hypothesis. What if this went in here? And how much? Anyway. So it's just great to.
It's not about the vision. We have eyes, we can look,
Right.
and we also have a sense of what's reality. And you say, all these
I'm a
wonderful
dreamer.
buildings, all these wonderful
dreamer.
buildings, they will come. And I said, that's really great that that you have faith that that's going to happen, but that's really all it is. And so you can hold off and basically do nothing except make another parking lot, which if it stays that way and basically unused or lightly used for another 10 years, it is the worst use of land you could think of if it never happens. If this vision, this dream never happens, another parking lot, another impervious surface that is unattractive, that we got to maintain, serves basically nobody. It's a 10-year gamble that all these pieces will fall into place because DOT looked at it, experts have looked at it, and that therefore forms a vision. But it's realism that I'm looking at.
Okay, but I have a
And a
fourth.
park is very real. You can do it in 2 years, and it's
Wallingford-
wonderful for everybody.
Wallingford has a ton of parks already.
Yeah.
So that's the first.
Not
point.
there.
They have the Grand Street Park. Isn't there?
Not there.
Not there. I think there. Anyway, all right. We have to.
And they're not terribly attractive.
Okay.
So let's get
But
Tim
isn't there?
off
Let me
the
say there's a
hook on-
fourth choice.
Yeah, go ahead.
The fourth choice
Sure.
is it becomes a parking lot now, but if it's a parking lot now, that does not preclude that someday someone could try to buy that along with the part the town already owned, along with the part that the barber shop is on, right? I mean,
That's correct.
If it's a
That's right.
park, if you make it this beautiful park with a fountain and
You'll never
a
undo it.
statue to Jacques Cousteau or whatever
not
you
taking
put in
that
there,
away.
they are never. You're going to be
not
changing in
digging
front
it
of
up.
it. You never get rid of it.
It's permanent.
So that's why I believe in the fourth way, is make it a parking lot now, because it leaves the door open to either scenario, whether the thing across the street that you're talking about, or even that whole area, especially when the old train station becomes a pub.
There you go.
I like it when you get fired up.
Thank you.
You ready to change the subject?
You know you're ready, so.
Well, we got to. I want
gotta move.
I
We
want to
gotta
kill. I want to kill this last.
All right, sorry.
On the town website, there's a news release, and it says the town of Wallingford and its consultants have undertaken an alternatives assessment of pedestrian connectivity improvements study, I think, and I'm going to come back to that title in a minute. And there's going to be a public hearing on February 27 at 7 o'clock in room 315. And so anyone interested in what's going on in the downtown, put that on your calendar, February 27, 7 o'clock, room 315. And when I read this, I had a couple of reactions, but my most visceral reaction was engineers are terrible marketers. What an awful name for a study. I mean, are you serious? Who would want to go to an alternatives assessment pedestrian connectivity improvement study? It's nuts. I mean, if you're trying to sell it or market it, have something plain language, that's kind of fun, that's attractive. Don't have engineers control your marketing. They fail. This is miserable. I mean,
No argument there.
just a mess. It's a walkability study. And the other thing is it's not going to be televised, which is a tell, and in room 315, because it's if in room 315, it's not going to be televised. And so if it's not going to be televised, I begin to doubt how seriously the town is taking this. I'm going to get to the conclusions in a second. It'll only take me 30 seconds to do it. Chris, you had a visceral reaction to my visceral reaction. So
Well,
I want to hear your visceral reaction.
The fact that it's not televised is a tell.
Yeah, it's a tell.
We don't, but I view it, okay, well, maybe you know more than I do. I feel like we don't televise ordinance committee. We don't televise.
Those aren't important. I mean,
my point is, I feel like.
This, where you weren't listening, is an alternative
No, I was
assessment of
listening.
pedestrian connectivity improvements.
No, I'm just saying that.
What could be more exciting than that?
Okay, what I view it is that the GTV or whatever that has a specific budget, and that they televise what they can do within that budget. I don't know that, right?
Are you serious? If the mayor wanted this televised,
Understood, but
it
I
would
mean,
be televised.
I don't-
If the administration wanted to get folks excited about the vision of the downtown, this is how to start. You put a nice name on it. You put it in plain language. You have the copies of the study available. You have an executive summary that's easy to understand, and you say it's going to be on TV, and you pitch it.
I just don't know.
The opposite
what
of
else
the
is on
approach.
TV besides the council meetings and the Board of Ed meetings today? Because my
I'm
point is
not
there's
sure-
other
I'm not
stuff
sure your
like
point.
that
I'm
that
not
doesn't
sure
get
your point.
televised. Because I'm saying nothing gets televised.
Okay.
I don't think that anyone's sitting in a room. Go ahead. I don't want to take up time.
Yeah, because we're going to run it. So the
sorry.
point of this walkability study is that cost estimators, and the credentials is for another show, try to put a price tag on what it would take to really do a first-class beautification job on an area of Route 5, both north and south of Center Street. I think the specifics are 250 feet south of Quinnipiac, where it hits Route 5, down by the gazebo, to 630 feet north of the train station. It's a long stretch. There would be like sidewalk improvements and landscaping, a lot of neat stuff, the details of which you'd have to go to the meeting to see. And for about $6.5 million, you get that plus undergrounding all the wires. So I know when I drive into Wallingford from the North Haven side on Route 5 and I approach the gazebo, it's embarrassing how ugly that looks with all the wires overhead. It is just a disaster. And you get a first impression of Wallingford and you say, let me out of here. Let me take a right or a left or something. It is terrible. That's really the bottom line. There's something in here about a bike lane in that area, but I exclude that as, let's just not talk about a bike lane. It's dangerous, it's not practical, but that's included in the study. And I think the issue for the town of Wallingford is, and I'm going to go to Tim and then Chris, the issue for the town of Wallingford, are you interested in something like this as a way of improving aesthetics to try to jumpstart interest in that area where your parking lot is going to go, and no park, but where your parking lot is going to go, and to try to upgrade, the community that way? Is it worth $6.5 million? Your thoughts on my comments? And we're running out of time, so you got to be pithy. You got to be pithy about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've said for years that the lower part of the hill, again, as I said earlier tonight, is tired. And I kind of say shame on us as a community for letting it get that way and not doing enough to try to stimulate more vibrancy down there. So everybody has their opinions, and I'm not being harsh to you, Mike, but people can critique any study that we try to do to try to improve something. I look at it and say, we're doing something. We're trying.
I wasn't critiquing the study. I was summarizing it.
Okay, so we're trying to take and
I was critiquing the title, which is ridiculous.
No argument there.
Yeah.
With all due respect to the engineers, because they're very talented, but
Yeah.
yeah, so the idea is, for example, if you were to stand on the corner of Center Street and Route 5 and look north, or Hall Avenue and Route 5 rather, and look north towards the new train platform, you would see phone poles right in the middle of the sidewalk. You can't walk two people shoulder to shoulder in many places of the sidewalk.
And the $6.5 million would solve that.
Yes, it puts the power under the ground. So,
Right.
and then based on the example I used earlier, that lot on Route 5 and Hall Avenue, bordered by Holy Trinity and the train station, imagine if that was developed into a mixed-use development that had 4 floors of residential, and people are now in their new apartments, and they open the blinds in the morning, and they're staring out at phone poles and batteries of wires and generators, and it's time to take and clean this stuff up. Now, is there an assurance or a guarantee?
Is it worth $6.5 million?
I think it is. All right. Now, first off, that's not a final price. These are prices that the consultants are saying.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So it's not a final price.
Yeah.
I think it's worth serious consideration because how do you justify it? You justify it because it's your town center. Get something started.
Well, the first time tonight, I agree with you. But you hold the money. You're on the council. You can push this. You could have another hearing on it where it's televised and everything. You could do this. It's up to you to save this beautification project down there. What's your thoughts?
First time tonight, I don't agree. Well, I would rather.
Man,
tough.
come on.
I agree with doing it.
You accuse me of not having a vision.
I would
Boy,
rather.
oh
Well,
boy.
for $6.5 million, give me
for
give me the pool.
You bonded, and over
Give me
20
the
years, you'd
pool,
never
give me
notice
the-
it.
Give me. With the health insurance issue, there's so many other things that I think have to take priority.
I'll
But
try
I don't
that.
disagree with. I get it. It's part of the whole. It's part of the whole. It's a piece of the
So-
puzzle.
That's a
the
no.
parking lot, but
But it wouldn't likely be $6.5 million of town money either. So there'd be
Grant
state
money
funding. Oh,
or
sure,
state
absolutely.
funding. Okay.
The state has sent very, very strong signals. Not that they have any money, mind you, but they've sent very strong signals that they want to see, transit-oriented development around these new train platforms. So we would.
50-50?
I don't know, but
Would you go for like $3 million if this will get it done? Underground wiring, beautiful sidewalks.
That's half a pool. That's half my pool.
It'd be a complete new look. that
I-
whole
Yeah,
area.
I do. I don't.
And throw in the park where there's someplace to walk to. It would be.
We throw in the park. Well, throw in the park. What park? No, the parking lot. The nice parking lot.
we got to put a fountain in the park.
We'll put a fountain with your statue.
Tim, let's make that the final word. Actually, I want to give you just the final word. You got 60 seconds if you want for what you guys are doing in the next 6 months, but we only have just a short period of time, and then we'll close the show.
Well, that's the toughest question you've asked me all night.
Yeah, it
Usually
might have been.
You're very subject specific.
Well, you
so-
guys continue to work on the kinds of things
Well,
we're talking about, and
Yeah.
we
So-
should see that town center study, the profile study
Right.
soon.
Yeah, keep in mind, we're spending a lot of time in the town center, but because of the reasons
Yeah.
I've stated earlier. But in terms of tax generation and economic multiplier impact, it has the smallest impact, much smaller than the industrial parks. So I don't want anybody to think it's town center versus the industrial parks. We spend every bit as much time in the industrial parks trying to generate, new business and help grow business out there. So
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it. And thank you, our viewers, for listening to the Citizen Mike Show. You can see the Citizen Mike Show on WPAA Thursdays, Fridays, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays at 9 p.m. And so we've said over the years, if it's 9 at night, it's Citizen Mike. But now, you can also get it on YouTube. Go to YouTube and search the Citizen Mike Wallingford channel. You can pull up the show. We can send you a link to that YouTube production or whatever you want to call it. Just let me know you want me to send you that link, and you will be all fixed up. We will see you next week. Thanks again, everybody.